Put the hip shit on the shelf, cause the way the real weapons being real was slim. My eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the left. I can't do it by myself, so I'm asking for help. It's time to switch it up, put the hip shit on the shelf, cause the way the real weapons being real was slim. My eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the left. I can't do it by myself, so I'm asking for help. Money, money, money. All you got is nothing wrong with being wealthy. Like Kanye West says, having money is not everything, not having it is. No, Deuteronomy 8:18 says God gives us the ability to create wealth. Yo, it's the love of money that's going on. You don't like money so much, why you get up and go to work? Yes, I do, and your boss wants to make everything. I'm just trying to leave a legacy for money. It's not everything, but when you got it, you can do some cool stuff. And now, your host for Talking Money in the Morning, financial health mentor to the working class, Mr. H Cortez.
Good morning, Black world, and welcome to Talking Money in the Morning Live with your main man, H Cortez, the one and only financial health mentor to the Black community, everybody's favorite fatherpreneur, where I do my absolute best to bring practical yet proven wealth building strategies to working men and women all over this great nation of ours. It is truly an honor, privilege, and a blessing to be coming to you live and direct from the Monetize My Life Academy studios. Listen, if you are building a brand or if you have a business of any sort and you're trying to explode that brand, take it to the next level, then Monetize My Life Academy wants to help you do just that. We have tons of awesome video training, video courses on everything from how to build a network marketing company, how to monetize your blog. We're talking about how to profit from Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, all of these different platforms, man. Anything that you want to know, email marketing, how to do email campaigns, Facebook advertising. We've got you covered if you're trying to learn how to build a killer brand. This is the same things that I have been able to use to build my brand. My fan page is up to nearly 40,000 people, over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. And people call me all day, every day, asking to join my business because of the way I market. So if you need some help in the area of branding and marketing, then Monetize My Life Academy, you definitely want to check out www.monetizemylifeacademy.com. It's a $97 a month membership. But if you are a fan of the show, inbox me and I will give you a 50% discount. Not a 50% discount on your first month, but a 50% discount on period. So you would be able to get the membership for $47 per month, and comes with a lot of other stuff too, but I just want to throw that out there to you. So today we're talking about should the fans boycott the NFL over the Colin Kaepernick situation or not? But do me a huge favor, if you're checking us out on Periscope, go ahead and invite your followers to come take a listen. If you are checking us out on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And then once you subscribe, go ahead and leave me a comment if you like today's show, thumbs up, and then grab the link and share it on your favorite social media timeline, whether it's LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you like to share links. It's cool. Share it over there. And then my guys on Facebook, my gals on Facebook, go ahead and do the same thing. Go ahead, and if you haven't already hit the little button to get notifications when I go live, please do that. And then go ahead and share today's show. And then the likes and the hearts and the thumbs up, they do mean something to me, but more importantly, they mean something to Facebook. It tells them that we have quality content, and when we go live with the show, they will push it out to more and more people according to how much you guys engage with the show. So for those of you who are brand new and never been on the show before, I'd like to let you know exactly who this show is for. This show is for risers and grinders only, man. You got to be ready to get up, get out, and get something. If that's you, this is your show. This show is for legacy builders. If you got children or plan to have children or got nieces and nephews and you're trying to make your last name synonymous with wealth, synonymous with success, synonymous with philanthropy, then this show is for you, because when it's all said and done, you're going to be able to say the name Thornton and it's just going to mean, it's going to be synonymous with success, right? That's what we're trying to do. And if that's you, this is your show. On the other hand, who is the show not for? Show is not for those who have a problem for every solution, right? This show is not for the person who is sitting back waiting on Donald Trump to fix the economy instead of focusing on your economy. You have to do something in order to have something change in your life. So if that's you, then you can exit stage left and we won't miss you. And like I tell you each and every morning, I have no problem with you not wanting to be wealthy. I only have a problem with you when you have a problem with me wanting to be wealthy. You stay in your lane, I stay in my lane, and everything will be kosher, my friend. Today's show is also brought to you by the Black Wealth Movement. The Black Wealth Movement is a network of people committed to bringing financial literacy to the Black community. If you want to join an organization like that and help, first and foremost, yourself get your finances in order, then help your neighbor get their finances in order, you've got to check out the Black Wealth Movement. All you do is go to www.blackwealthmovement2017.com to learn more, or you can inbox me and I'll send you some information. So today, the question is, should the fans boycott the NFL over the Kaepernick situation, or should the players be doing the boycotting? What say you, Facebook? You think the fans should be more concerned about boycotting the NFL, or should the players be more concerned about boycotting the NFL? What let's do a poll real quick. What do you say? What do you say? Right? If you guys are on YouTube and you want to join the conversation, you can go over to my page on Facebook, Cortez Springer, or you can go jump on Periscope. Oh, and by the way, let me give this announcement while you guys are taking them, while we're taking the poll. This show is going to my fan page starting next week. So remember, next week, this show will be streamed from my fan page and not my personal profile. So Monica says both. Yvette says both. What say ye? Should the fans be boycotting the NFL, or should the players be boycotting the NFL over the Kaepernick situation? And then we're going to talk about 5 reasons that it will never happen from the fan side. We're talking about 5 reasons that it'll never happen from the player side. 5 reasons the players will never boycott the NFL. I think it affects us. Says AB, we have to change the economy and laws. Yep. And the answer says neither should be boycotting. Okay, good. All right, so let's just talk about it. Let me give you my thoughts and my opinions. Right. I think more than anybody else, I think the players should be boycotting more than anybody else, because it's simply the message that the NFL is sending to all players is that if you buck the system, then you can't play in our little party. And I think if you are a player, you've got to be thinking to yourself that maybe I won't sit during the national anthem, but maybe I'll do something else that the league doesn't like, and I won't be able to work. And they'll stand up against me, right? So maybe it's not necessarily you standing or sitting during the national anthem, but you could do anything that the league doesn't like, and the Shield can blackball you. Now, on the other hand, I understand that the Shield is owned by a group of people. And when somebody owns something, you can't dictate to them how they can run that which they own. So if they want to blackball Colin Kaepernick, they can, because they are owners. They are protecting their shield. I get that. But let's talk about 5 reasons that the players will never boycott the NFL, right? One from reason number 5 up to reason number 1. Reason number 5, the players will, well, let's do this. Let's before we go into the 5 reasons, man, let me just talk about the draft for a second, man. Because I will tell you, the draft to me is very, very, very reminiscent. And the NFL draft more so than any other draft, right? The NFL draft more so than any other draft. And here's why. Here's why I said the NFL draft. Because the NBA draft, in order to draft the players, they do more studying of the players' performance on the court, right? They bring them in for workouts and they watch them work out. And yes, they do have their measurements, right? They do have their measurements. They just kind of, they want to know how long somebody's wingspan is. They want to know how tall somebody is, how much they weigh, if they're in shape, and all that kind of stuff. But if you ever watch the NFL draft and the weeks and the months leading up to it, it is eerily reminiscent of the slave trading block. Eerily reminiscent. I mean, to literally being stripped down to their underwear. Now, I know you're saying that, Cortez, they don't make the players strip down to their underwear. The players strip down to their underwear themselves so they can be more, so they can have less resistance when they're running, so they can be faster and all that kind of stuff. But I'm telling you, man, the players may strip down to their underwear themselves, but they televise it. They televise it. And you're not going to tell me that somebody somewhere, maybe in some smoke-filled room somewhere, is not getting off completely on that whole spectacle. Now, I could be wrong. I could be wrong, right? But I'm telling you, when you take a player and you strip him down and you sit him before the world can see so that you can inspect his physical specimen before you bid on making a purchase of his person for a certain amount of time, that is eerily reminiscent of the way we were traded and sold on slave blocks. Now, maybe it's just coincidence. And if that's how you want to do your business, because you are about, as an owner, you are about to make a multi-million-dollar investment into this player. I get it. But really, it's got to be televised? Really, this can't be a private team deal where you say, hey, I want to check your 40 time. I want to see how fast you are. I want to make sure that you jump as high as you say you jump. I want to make, can you really, does that have to be televised? Nah, I don't have to be televised. That could be a private meeting. And I know you're saying, well, the fans want to get engaged and see. Fans don't care. Fans don't care. If you put out a report on the 10 guys that you're looking to draft and it just gave their numbers, the fans will be okay with that. The fans will be 100% okay with that. Right? And that's ridiculous. And then let me say this. When you see those things happening, you listen to how they describe our supernatural athletic ability. They don't describe it as supernatural. How do they describe it? He's a beast. He's a freak. He's a monster. Huh? That's a coincidence, though. It's just a coincidence. It's a coincidence that every one of our guys, 6'9", 250, solid, ripped up, is a beast, is a monster, is a freak. Huh? So when a police officer sees one of our brothers on the streets who is big and black, what are they thinking? He's a freak. He's a monster. He's a beast. Huh? Yeah, this thing goes deep, y'all. Goes deep. Yeah, that's where boxing came from. Slaves fought to the death for their spectators. So, I mean, it's just crazy to me to sit back and watch that whole thing, man. to sit back and watch that whole thing. So let's talk about the 5 reasons that the players will never boycott. Reason number 5, going to number, reason number 5 is they've been conditioned their entire lives not to. They've been conditioned their entire lives not to. I want you to think about something. Most of these kids, these young men who make it to the NFL have been identified as NFL prospects by the time they were in the 8th, 7th, 8th, and 9th grade. Most of the people said, Anthony says, are we financially set up to support player salary if they boycott? How long should they boycott go on? What if the legislation that we want from the NFL as a result from the boycott? Why do we have to support their salary if they boycott? Why do we have to support their salary, Anthony? We don't, I mean, if they boycott, we don't pay their salary. But we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about that. I'm gonna come back to that, Anthony. Good question though. Good question. We're gonna come back to that. So since the time these kids, most of these kids who are made it to the NFL were identified as NFL prospects when they were in about 8th and 9th grade. They were identified as prospects that early. And from that time on, they've been conditioned to never buck the system. So we're talking about 5 reasons that you will never see the players boycott the NFL. 5 reasons. Number 5 is because they have been conditioned not to their entire lives, right? And they don't say don't stand up against an NFL. They say you have an opportunity here, don't blow it, right? And they use it, they leverage it to keep kids out of trouble, and that's a good thing. But really, they're conditioning them to fall under this authority known as the NFL shield. So reason number 5, you'll never see players is because from the time they were 8th and 9th grade and identified as prospects in the top 250, top 100, that kind of deal, they've been conditioned to behave a certain way from that time on. Reason number 4. Reason number 4. In order to organize something as a boycott, it requires leadership. It requires leadership. And who leads NFL players? Right? Who leads NFL players? So the reason you'll never see them boycott is that there's no real leadership in amongst the players when it comes to what should be mandated, what should be mandatory when it comes to how the league treats them as a group of players, right? There's no leadership there. Now, you might have a player who leads his team out of the locker room. You might have a player that leads his team on the field of battle. But that's as far as players' leadership usually goes. Usually as far as a player's leadership usually goes. We don't have, I don't know if we have any Jim Brown type players today willing to say, you know what? I don't like how y'all treating us. And whether I can get my entire group of cohorts to follow me, I'm not going to stand for it. And I think that's what you have Colin Kaepernick is trying to do now is, you know what, here's my stance. If I can work here with you guys, great. But if I can't, this is my stance. Would I like for my other brothers to pay attention to this stance? Absolutely. But everybody's not. And these are the 5 reasons, in my opinion, that you'll never see a boycott from the players, no matter how egregious the NFL owners treat the players, no matter how they are treated. We see they're treated like, and when you think about being conditioned, that whole process of being poked and prodded for the NFL draft, that's part of the conditioning process. Strip down. Let us measure every inch of you. Run faster. Run harder. Jump higher. Let me see you jump. Let me see you jump higher. Let me see you hit this bag. Let me see you tackle that dummy. So that's a conditioning process similar to what took place in the Caribbean when we were broken as slaves, right? There was a conditioning process, and similar to that, they run the NFL drafts in a very similar fashion. So it's conditioning. So number four reason that you'll never see leadership is because, the players boycott is because that requires leadership, right? Not a lot of leadership off the field for players. You know why? Because they've been told that you are a player, you're not a politician. You are a player, you're not a social activist. You sit your butt down and shut up. When grown folks are talking, shut up. That's why these guys don't even have an opinion about anything. Ask them about anything, and what do they say? Hey, I just want to just thank my coaches. My teammates helped me out, and it's a team effort. And you ever notice every interview from every player sounds exactly the same? That's conditioning. That's conditioning. And that's why a guy like Marshawn Lynch, I'm only here so I don't get fined. I'm only here so I don't get fined. Got a question for you, Marshawn. I'm only here so I don't get fined. Right? So there is a conditioning going on, and we help that conditioning process when the young athletes are little kids, right? And we're pushing them through that system and pushing. We help to condition them to never take a stance against anything that could draw attention to them and jeopardize their opportunity to go get a college scholarship or eventually play in the NFL. We helped in that process. Number three, a boycott of that magnitude requires leadership off the field. And there's not a lot of leadership off the field for NBA players, right? Yes, even worse on the college level before you even get to that's a whole process, right? So when you get to the college level, that's like us being dropped off in the Caribbean, and they were really breaking us, and then the NFL is like when we finally hit the States, right? You get dropped off in the Caribbean, and we're going through that middle passage and that hill over there being broken on a college level, and then you finally get to the NFL. That would be kind of like at the States. You're already mentally broken and conditioned by the time you get to the States. Number three reason that you'll never see the boycott happen in the NFL is because something of that magnitude takes courage. Take courage. And the thing that troubles me out of this whole situation is there are tons and tons and tons of NFL players who are privately supporting Colin Kaepernick. Privately. Got your back, bro. All right, so you're going to pump the black fist during the national anthem? You're going to sit down during the national anthem? Oh, no, but I got your back, bro. Yeah. So number 3, it requires courage. Number 4 was leadership. Number 3 requires courage. And not to say that these brothers are cowards in their everyday lives, but it takes courage to stand up for what you believe in. It takes courage to sacrifice for what you believe in. Come on, this is a known sacrifice by Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick has an agent. Colin Kaepernick cut his hair, and his agent put out a statement apologizing he have a job in the NFL tomorrow. But just like Colin is trying to make a statement, then NFL is making a statement. They're saying, hey, we're not going to tolerate this type of protest, this type of social activist. We're not going to allow you to use this platform to bring attention to any social injustice, because we don't want any problems with our sponsors. And that's what it is. And that's what it is. That's what it is. So it takes courage to stand up for what you believe in, but it's not about, in this situation, it's not about the courage to stand. It's about the courage to sacrifice, to give it all up and say, you know what? You guys are so wrong for dumping on this man's constitutional right to peacefully protest. You're dumping on his constitutional right. This is so wrong. You're dumping on his constitutional right that I'm willing to give it all up. I have the courage to give it all up for the sake of showing you how bold I'm going to stand on this here principle. Right? That takes courage, and a lot of courage. Right? Takes a lot of courage. Number 2, talking about 5 reasons that is not going to happen from a player standpoint, right? And these are pretty much the same 5 reasons that it's not going to happen from the fan standpoint either. All right. So number 5 was they've been conditioned to fall in line their entire careers as ball players. They've been conditioned. Number 5. Number 4 was it requires leadership. There's not a lot of off-field leadership when it comes to NFL players. They have some leadership on the field, in the locker room, but when they leave those campuses of those NFL facilities, there's not a lot of leadership that goes on for players as a unit, right? Number 3, courage. It takes courage to sacrifice, and they just a lot of them just don't have the courage or the willingness to sacrifice. That was kind of what Marshawn Lynch was doing. Like, man, you know what? I don't got to keep beating my body up like this. I don't like the situation that you're trying to force me into. Barry Sanders did the same thing. Hey, man, y'all don't want to trade me and send me to a different team so I have a chance to win me a Super Bowl. I'm cool on this whole sport then. Just, I'm cool, right? That takes courage to do that. Number 2, a boycott requires unity. A boycott requires that entire collective to be unified. Now, I know what you're saying, that, well, the NFL does have a players union. You know what the players union in the NFL is like? It's like the Republican and the Democratic Party. 2 sides of the same coin. The NFL players union and the NFL Shield is 2 sides of the same coin. There's a false sense of duality when you think about politics, The same way there's a false sense of duality when you think about the NFL versus the NFL Players Union. It's the same thing. But they have to be given a false sense of duality in order to think that they have some sense of control. Right? You guys saw the illusion of inclusion. You guys saw what happened in this election. They make you think you are participating in the process when you really don't have a say. So so all of the structures in the NBA, NFL, they understand how to play mind games at the utmost level. So you think about you know, policy. You think about the NFL and the NFL's players union, just like in the way this so-called democracy is set up, which is really a republic and not a democracy. They make you think you're participating in the process, and that appeases you so that you can claim ownership of something that you can never own. See, if I vote, and even if the person I voted for didn't win, I still feel like I have ownership in a corporation that I can never own. So as an NFL player, if I get a chance to vote on a particular contract with us and the owners, I feel like I'm participating in a league, and because I voted, I claim ownership over something I could never own. Elliot, you're a fool. Elliot said one of the reasons they won't boycott is they don't want to make their non-black wives mad. We'll get into that in a second, Elliot. So in order for a boycott to work, it requires unity. And there is no unity, because if you're telling me you have a player like James Harrison come out and say that if somebody sits during the national anthem, they better be in a wheelchair. Right? So now it seems and it sounds good like he's being a patriot. If you're being a patriot, then you have to respect this man's right to peacefully protest. You have to respect this man's right to peacefully protest if you're patriotic, because that's what being a patriot means. We have certain rights that we are afforded in order to, because we are American citizens, right? So James Harrison said, you better be. So now he's pretending to show some leadership. But that sounds good for a guy who's on his way out of the league, right? Standing up. So that's not really a taking a stance, right? So you have to be unified. And I want you to think about this from the NFL perspective. Colin Kaepernick was one of their brothers, right? So if it is really our team, NFL Players Union, against your team, anytime you do something against my team, my whole team is going to stand up and fight for our brother. That's why I say it's two sides of the same coin. The NFL Players Union is still an NFL-owned entity. And at the end of the day, it comes down to whatever the Shield wants. But they give them a sense of control by letting them vote on certain things and all that kind of stuff. And that's how they allow them to take ownership in this thing called the NFL, right? You hear the NFL players, they swear up and down, they talk about like they own the league. And they're really just employees, contract employees at that. So there's no unity even amongst the players union, because there's no question about hey, this is our union. Somebody's messing with somebody in our union. The entire union goes to stand, goes to bat for that person. And the entire union will go to bat for that person against anybody else except the league. So there has to be unity. Number one, the fifth, and the number one reason that players will never boycott the NFL is because they can't afford to. The number one reason players will never boycott the NFL is because they cannot afford to. You guys realize that NFL players live check to check? Do you guys realize that? We are so messed up when it comes to our financial knowledge that NFL players live check to check. Yeah, they need my econ. NFL players live paycheck to paycheck. Number one reason you'll never see them boycott is because they cannot afford to. When the last time the NFL went on strike, I can't remember how many weeks they missed. 3, 4, 5 weeks or something like that, 6 weeks. Because those players were missing those checks is what caused them to crumble and take the deal that the NFL had on the table. You mean to tell me you get millions of dollars in signing bonuses, and when you can't get your check on Sunday for 3, 4, 5 weeks in a row, you in foreclosure? That's exactly what I'm telling you. NFL players live check to check. Now, they are some awfully big checks, but they live check to check. They get paid on Sundays. And let 2 or 3 Sundays go by and they don't get a paycheck. They in trouble. So the number one reason you'll never see NFL players boycott the league is because they can't afford to. Because what they have been conditioned to do monetarily is go out and get the same amount of bills that is equal to that weekly paycheck. And see, you got to remember that NFL contracts aren't guaranteed either. They're not guaranteed. So that means anytime the team wants to turn around and say, oh, you hurt your toe? We just gonna waive you. And that contract disappears. That alone would be the reason that I'd be a lot more smart with my money. That reason alone would be the reason that I'd be a lot more smart with my money. This has been going on for years. Why all of a sudden it's a factor? What is your opinion? I think the 24-hour news cycle needed a story, and that's why the Colin Kaepernick story had became a big deal. And then also there is a constant battle of between patriots and those who are becoming increasingly non-patriotic. Or in other words, there's an increasing amount of people challenging the government and the rules and regulations and the decisions being made by the government. So here is an opportunity to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Not only do you have a black man opposing, so now we can rally the patriots and bring patriotism back but you can also shine a light on someone who is of the minority race and say, hey, these people don't appreciate patriotism. These people don't appreciate the country that they live in, and that sort of thing. So I think this was a perfect storm for what's going on, because you notice every so many years we have that. Now this isn't on the scale of a 9/11, but every so many years there's an event in this country that galvanizes the country and brings them back to patriotism, brings us back to say, hey, we all need to be standing under one flag. Because the longer that you're in this country and the more you study and the more you grow, the more you become aware, the more you start to see that, hey, there's some things that probably should change around here. So if you have a 9/11, boom, everybody is back to on the side under the flag. And then as years go beyond 9/11, people start to splinter again. And then there's another something that happens, and boom, that brings everybody back under patriotism and under the flag. And now this is one of those type deals where they blew this way out of proportion. What if Colin Kaepernick was sitting for the flag and not a single camera ever paid attention? Not a single camera ever paid attention to whether or not that man was standing or sitting. Not a single flag ever, or a single camera ever put that up there? Yeah, similar to what Tim Tebow was doing, right? So when you think about it, it's just a matter of, I think this was one of those things needed to continue to be. And you know what? Here's the other thing you gotta realize. Until 5 or 6 years ago, players wasn't even on the field for the national anthem. That was a marketing scheme or marketing ploy by the U.S. military to bring the players out. The NFL made millions of dollars to put that in their constitution that the players had to be on the field and take a stand for the national anthem. 5 or 6 years ago, players wasn't even on the field during the national anthem. But again, that goes back to trying to bring people under the flag when people start to splinter a little bit. So players can't afford to boycott because they're just not smart with their money. And when you have a contract that's not guaranteed, you would think that, and not under this current collective bargaining agreement, but before, when you came out of college, if you was in a top 10, you can make 30, 40, 50 million dollars and get you a $5-6 million signing bonus that was guaranteed, that they couldn't take back from you as long as you played those first 2 or 3 years. Knowing that my contract isn't guaranteed, you think I'm going to blow that first 5 or 6 million? My contract ain't guaranteed. So no, I'm going to take this 5 million and be very, very smart with it. I'm going to be very, very smart with it. And then if I make it to a next big contract, then so be it. But if all of the NBA players had, or NFL players had that mentality that says, hey, I've got this little piece of money, I want to put it to work for me, and I'm not going to worry about having to depend on a future contract. I'm going to pretend that this is the only money that I get. And then if something happens where it's time for you to stand up against injustice, you're straight. But because when you get that first contract, we have been conditioned that our whole lives that you spend your money before you get it. What is debt? Debt is you leveraging money that you have not even made yet. I sign a contract to buy a car. That means I'm spending money. If I finance this car, I'm spending money in 2018, 19, and 20 that I haven't even made yet. And the NFL players do the same thing. I've got $10 million, or I got $100 million contract. That means $10 million a year over 10 years. So they go out and leverage a $10 million, sometimes $12, $15 million a year lifestyle, spending that money that they haven't even earned yet. So I've got a $15 million a year lifestyle. I got a $10 million a year salary that's not guaranteed. I get hurt in year 3. They waive me. So the other 70 million I don't even see, but I've got $100 million worth of debt. So they can't boycott because they're over leveraged financially. They need those checks. They need those checks. So the reason there's no unity is because those who are over leveraged are looking at those who are willing to sacrifice, whether they have the financial stability to do so or not. They're saying, hey man, you about to mess this up for me. The last strike, the NFL strike, the last one, those people who were broke were screaming the loudest at those who were straight and those who were fighting for every T to be crossed and every I to be dotted in the contract. They were saying, man, come on, just sign this stuff, man, so we can get back to playing football. They didn't care nothing about playing football. Sign this stuff so I can get back to getting my $700,000 check every week. My mortgage is due. So you'll never see an NFL boycott unless we teach our young fellas how to manage and deal with money before they get it. Right? There's a story of a young man, I think he plays for Jacksonville Jaguars. Did some, I don't know if they're trying to give Dave Ramsey credit, but a dude has been living off $60,000. He's an NFL player, makes millions, but he lives off $60,000 a year. You don't need that. Kawhi Leonard drives a 2006 Tahoe in 2017. They asked him why. He said, because it works. Kawhi Leonard of the San Antonio Spurs in the NBA drives a 2006 Tahoe in 2017. They asked him why. He said, because ain't nothing wrong with it. Only a fool will throw a perfectly good vehicle away to go buy a new one just because he can. And that's what our ball players need to stop doing. They need to understand that you're making money off your labor right now. The day will come when you can no longer make money off your labor. Then what? When you can no longer make money off your labor, then what? And the funny thing is, out of all the stories of players going broke 3 to 5 years after they leave the game, players being played with the league health care once they get hurt, and player pensions. The players know all of this, man. They're aware of all of this. But you know what happens when you're a super athlete? You know what happens when you're a super athlete? You feel like you're invincible. You feel like you're invincible, and you've become untouchable to a degree. When you have little mishaps in college and they sweep it under the rug and it goes away. When you need money, somebody's taking care. You begin to feel like you're untouchable. You begin to feel like you're invincible. And when you feel like that, you feel blessed, like, hey, I haven't had an injury in my whole career. So I'm just going to play this thing straight through without no injury. I'm going to max out on all of my contracts. I'm going to get a big shoe deal. All of that stuff can go away in the blink of an eye. So that which you did get your hands on, you need to learn how to leverage it. And that's the same thing with us as small time folks just making regular salaries, 50, 60,000 a year or whatever. Stop leveraging your salary 5 years into the future with a car note, 30 years into the future with a house note. If you've already done that, then let's look at some ways that we can get out of those traps. Let's look at some ways we can get out of those traps. Right? Ask AI. There's a lot of stories, right? Antoine Walker. There's a lot of stories out there. And then those same guys, or what happens is those same guys will let the league continue to leverage their celebrity and make millions, and they get paid pennies. Give an example. So Antoine Walker played with the Celtics, 80, $90 million contract at one point in his career, all gone, right? But he was his lifestyle, and even after foreclosure and bankruptcy and stuff, he's still living a certain lifestyle. Networks know that. So they come to you and they offer you a gig to be on a commentator on their network. You think Antoine Walker is making the same amount of money as a commentator like a Rick Barry or somebody like that? Nope, because he has no leverage. So he pretty much has to take what they give him. But if you've done what you're supposed to do with your money and somebody comes to offer you popcorn peanut money to be a celebrity commentator, you can tell them to go kick rocks. So everybody plays this little game with us. So when you lose your contract and you're struggling financially, then the networks come in and say, hey, he's charismatic. He's got a popular name. We can go ahead and hire him to be our commentator, and we can probably get him on pennies for the dollar. Yeah, Marcellus Wiley's case with CTE denied by the NFL. Yeah, they ain't playing. They ain't playing. And here's another case where you should be saying, okay, this Marcellus Wiley was part of our brotherhood. If the league is not going to take care of this brother and this brother's family because of CTE, then all of us are not only going to sit down through the national anthem, we're going to sit down when they blow the whistles for kickoff. But again, they've been taught and conditioned to not buck the system. Boycotting requires leadership, which there is none off the field. It requires courage. Again, there's not a whole lot of courage for sacrifice off the field. It requires unity. They don't have a union. They have they have a second side to the NFL shield. They have the NFL shield, the part that we see on the face, the NFL's player union, that is the backside of the shield. The players think that is a separate entity. No, that's the backside of the shield. The front side is what the public sees. The backside is the NFL players union. It is still the same entity. They're working hand in hand to keep this $10 billion a year machine churning. And number one reason that they can't boycott is because they can't afford to. NFL players are broke, living paycheck to paycheck. They're just broke on a higher level, right? They make 10 million a year and spend 15. They make 10 million a year and spend 15. because they're believing that they're going to be able to catch up and settle those debts. Nah, man, the way this whole thing shakes out, man, is you can see a lot of our young blacks get a lot of money, right? But how much of that money from these young blacks who get that money in celebrity, whether it's entertainment, music, or whatever, how much of it is actually kept and passed down to the next generation? You get to have your hands on it and play on it. I'm gonna say this. What you got to realize is that at a time when we were slaves and the slave master would give us money to celebrate, it was mandated that we spend all of that money on partying and liquor. We couldn't take none of that money and go buy us a small piece of land and start farming on our own, because that would be them financing our liberation. It was mandated that if you made some money through sharecropping or whatever, or if the master blessed you and your fellow slaves to celebrate a holiday, for instance, we're going to give you these $2, but you got to spend the whole $2. And I'm going to know if you spent the whole $2 because you have to go to my store in town to get everything that you need. You got to spend the whole $2 on booze, food, or whatever, but you got to spend the whole. You can't save any of this money so that you can later go and buy you a gun. For goodness sakes, you can't save any of this money and go so you go buy your freedom. No, this money is used. So we have that mentality that every time we get our hands on some money, we have to spend it all, and that's what these brothers are doing. Number one reason they'll never boycott is they can't afford to financially, right? They can't afford to financially. So whether you stand with Colin Kaepernick or stand against Colin Kaepernick, it makes no never mind. But if you look at the brotherhood, the supposed brotherhood of what the NFL is, then you look at the black players and you even look at the white players. The white players are claiming patriotism. Well, why aren't the white players saying, hey, it is his right under the Constitution to peacefully protest? Leave the man alone. I don't have to agree with him. It's just like we saw the black police officers defending the rights of the Ku Klux Klan to have their rallies. Those black officers had to protect their right to freedom of assembly. Any white player standing up saying, hey, Colin Kaepernick has a right under this Constitution to peacefully demonstrate and peacefully protest when he sees an injustice. Leave the brother alone. I ain't doing that, because there is no players union. There's no player unity. There's no player union. No unified body of players. So that's my take on the whole Colin Kaepernick situation. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Keep in mind, if you are building a business of any kind and you want some branding and marketing help, go to Monetize My Life Academy. If you have some passions and you see other people making money from those passions and you're trying to figure out how you can do the same, then Monetize My Life Academy will help you understand how to transform any passion into a profit. That's what I do. You can turn any passion into a profit. This is my passion for helping and teaching financial education, and I've been able to turn that into a profit. I'm passionate about the game of basketball. I turn that into a profit. I'm passionate about media, and I'm able to turn that into a profit, right? Whatever you're passionate about, there are some strategies and a game plan that you can employ to transform those things into profits. And that's why I created the site Monetize My Life Academy, because it will walk you through the process, open your mind up to the endless possibilities, and then help you execute a game plan, put systems in place, whether it's blogging, video marketing, websites, affiliate marketing, whatever you want to do to make some passive income, we got you. So go to www.monetizemylifeacademy.com. It is a $97 a month membership, but if you're a fan of the show, inbox me and I will allow you into this membership for just $47. Not just $47 off the first month, $47 lifetime as long as you don't cancel. If you cancel and start back up, then you have to pay regular price. But $47 a month if you're a fan of the show. So just inbox me and say, hey, I want to check that out. I'm a fan of Talking Money in the Morning, and I'll give you the special coupon code to go get registered for your first month. And you can check it out and see how we can help you monetize your life. So until I talk to you guys tomorrow, I want you to get your money up because you absolutely can do it. Peace out, y'all.